So, as has been stated before, the problem is not the abuse of power. The problem is the power to abuse. And I'm trying to bring that home. I'm trying to bring that principle home to where you really have some power and some effect in your life. Getting mad at George Bush won't change one bullet in one soldier's gun from its destination. Not one shred of one tiny thing will we change about George Bush by getting angry at him. And I've talked about this before, don't bother railing against politicians. If you want to look for the abuse of power within your own life, look at those who commanded your life when you were young. And get those people out of your life unless you loved them to death, in which case, more power to you. I think that's wonderful. But it's not the case. It's not the case. There is no capacity for the non-abuse of power in modern culture and in almost all cultures throughout history. Because morality and epistemology, ethics and metaphysics has been so corrupted by irrationality and the abuse of power already that nobody can hold power and not abuse it these days. Maybe I would put myself in the very sort of minority of exceptions, and even the small power that I've had as a company owner, I have not abused that power, but that power was still difficult and dangerous in that it drew other people to attempt to exploit me, and sometimes they did it with varying degrees of success. So there's no possibility that people can benevolently wield power, and by that I mean parental power, not political power, in the modern world. No parent can reinvent the missing history of rational philosophy and ethics sitting around while they're commuting and doing their job. It's not going to happen. So there's no capacity, the capacity does not exist for the benevolent exercise of parental power. It would be to imagine that a parent could become a physicist just by sitting around and thinking about it. No. It takes years of training to become a physicist. Now, does that mean that nobody who does not devote years of study to philosophy can be a moral human being? No, of course not. Because I know that the world is round, although I could not step you through the logical proof. I accept the premises of the theory of relativity, though for the life of me I could not prove it mathematically. Because I read a couple of books. It really was that simple. Once the work is done in philosophy, transmitting the conclusions is really not that difficult. But we who are in this conversation are trying to build a new and more accurate and more humane and more reality-based kind of ethics. And we are attempting to unravel the knots and convolutions and self-destructive loopholes that is infests every aspect of modern, what is called morality. Which is nothing more than a corrupt and vaguely codified trough of self-binging self-interest and destruction, and a sop for violence and a cover for evil, and a cloak under which assassins quietly steal. So parents aren't going to be able to come up with the unraveling of all the mistakes and horrors and convolutions of modern moral philosophy. I mean, come on, it's not going to happen. The only people who ever devote years of study are those who are paid by the state to further promote this kind of corrupt, postmodern, relativistic, violent, excusing philosophy. So that's why I'm trying to bring it back home into the family, because we can do something about that. And power creates abuse. Power is the exercise of violence and control without consequence. And if we continue to see our parents, despite the fact that they have not been good to us, then we are absolutely and unequivocally agreeing with and approving and sanctioning and rewarding the exercise of brute power without consequence. So how on earth could we complain about the state? So that's really why I'm focusing so much on this, and I've talked a lot about parents as a whole, but the primary chair of this despotic regime called the family is the mother.